Well, hello there, this is Shane from Shane's Reviews, and I hope you are having a great day today. If you hear any rumbling or thumping or stuff around, winds are coming through yet again, like we haven't had enough already. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about Iceworld, another B.V. Larson book, which was narrated by Mark Boyette. And this one I think is number 16 in the Undying Mercenary series. So, quick question up front, what was the production like? It was decent, it was really good. It's gotten to the point where I'm sometimes forgetting to mention that because it's just kind of a standard anymore whenever it comes to these sorts of books. I don't know how to handle breaking this book down, so I might do it just a little bit differently. First off, the emotional response. What did I have from this book? It was good. There was a couple points in it where I was like, I honestly did not see this coming. And whenever you get to that point, you'll know. There was a few things that I've mentioned in the previous review about wondering about, how are we going to handle the situation with the Clavers? How are we going to handle the situations with X, Y, and Z? And what is actually going to be the end game of this series? Because, 16 books in, we're getting there. Now, the previous book was kind of a setup. So Green World came out in a really unique way. Now, some people probably wouldn't like the way that book ended, but quite frankly, I think it was time that James finally starts to chill out and relax whenever it comes to his more than ambiguous love life. And we kind of see that with him having those reflections at the end of the last book altogether. It was kind of nice to see. It was just kind of fun, and especially the way that actually ties into this book as well. Now, this book it kind of feels long compared to a lot of them, and it might be the exposition that's in it. It might be some further development on James McGill himself, but certainly not your standard story by any means whatsoever. There are times where authors will play with an audience, because you'll be expecting something one way or the other, but they've had months or years to think about this story before they actually write it sometimes, and sometimes not so much. But this is one of those things I think that he thought out fairly well, so I applaud the efforts that B.V. Larson put into this. But things have really kind of gotten out of control because there's always been this mismatch of Galactic Gold, and people were skimming it, and it's a thing that's kind of been just glanced over throughout the books. So I'm kind of glad it's getting addressed now, because the Galactic Gold is a very special thing. It's a very valuable thing, but the Cretans that live in our part of the galaxy aren't allowed to have it because we would spend it, and we would probably buy stuff that we're not supposed to have, etc., whatever. But the point is the story kind of revolves around that, but also where James McGill is starting to head towards. Because there's multiple points in this book where he could have said, you know what, no, peace, I'm out. I'm not dealing with this crap anymore, I'm done. But we don't see him do that. Now, there's sub-stories and subplots that are in this. It makes me think of Dune plots within plots, but these are some of the things that I was not expecting. It has to do with people that are put in a command. It has to deal with the way that some of those people that were put in command were took out of command. And that brings me to one of the more interesting subplots I think that was in this whole book is Graves. Graves is kind of he's a Primus, but it's always kind of been one of those things when there's a time for someone to be moved to Tribune, to be the leader of Valis. Seems like this dude gets looked over all the time. And it's not like Harris. Harris is kind of just that bloodthirsty warmonger, and he kind of fits where he's at very well. McGill, kind of the same thing. There was a couple times where he was offered to become a Tribune or a Primus for the Off-Worlders, the Blood Worlders, etc. And he turned those things down. But we get to a point in this story where it's like, yo, Graves, what's up, really? And there's always been this little rumor floating around inside of the books that he did something really bad way back when, before the Starship stuff was even a real possibility. Back before the Galactics even showed up in our our place in our time for the first time. So the man's been around for quite some while. And so we get some information, and not necessarily denial, but not necessarily confirmation of things that was done in the past. And leave it to McGill to be the one that goes and puts it right up in the middle of his face saying, hey, I hear that. So, I mean, it was kind of cool to see that whole scene. And I really hope that one day that's given, because that would be such a gift to know what he did. And maybe, just maybe, he could be the one that is needed, because he's the most level-headed out of the whole group. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like Galena, but she's very explosive. I like Drusus, but Drusus is kind of a touch cold. He's the type you really don't want to mess with, because he'll find a way to get you in which you wouldn't really see coming, which is horrible. But he also has a way of commanding large groups of people, but he wouldn't necessarily be somebody that you would want to be as a king or a godhead kind of a figure, really. So, I mean, there's that. There's that all over the place, really. But I digress a little bit. It's just that we get a nod where it comes to Graves and the way that Graves is. And some suspicions are there, and some of them are brought out in the open, and we'll just move on. Hopefully we'll get some more later on. Now, the story it continues to get like out there and out there and out there, because not only do we have that going on, now we have the stuff from the Galactics, where I think it's the Nyx, is her name? Nyx or Nox? It says, okay, go get me my Galactic Gold and we'll just wash all this under the table. And in fact, there's a whole lot of comedic relief at that point too. But, you know, they're going out there to do this. They get there. The Clavers are, of course, the ones that are there that have been influencing a lot of things in the background. And there's not really a straight answer on where this Galactic Gold came from. Is it from the Tau? Is it from Clavers? Is it from Clavers stealing it from the Tau? Is it from just shady dealings and getting coins and amassing them? I mean, you know, where did this actually come from? It's kind of alluded to, but it's never actually said. Although it is kind of said multiple times that this is the gold from the Tau. But, I mean, it's also said many different things, many different ways. I'm not going to say if that's a loose story point. What I'm going to say is that's a well-wrote story point. Mainly because B.V. Larson understands those characters well enough to know that any of the Clavers, either the Primes or the Claver 2s or Claver 3s, and even Claver X, would never give a straight answer on something like that to begin with. So they get there, and then there's all this other stuff that happens. Let's fast forward a little bit. I don't want to tell you any of the conclusions, really, because some of it's actually really well done. It's really well wrote. So I've enjoyed this book. I've listened to it twice at this point, and I will probably listen to it for a third time as well. The reason being is there's just so much detail in this one, and these guys kind of are a little detail-y, but I mean, there's a lot in this one. So I've enjoyed that aspect of it quite a bit. The question of the week shall be, oh yeah, we need to bring that one back. Let's say that you were given the ability to go claim all this gold for the Galactics as it was. Would you keep any of it? I mean, be honest. Because, I mean, there's not really a value put onto it, but it's made known that just one of those coins could be so much. So much. Like planet buying so much. Would you keep one? Just one? I mean, you can tell me. I'll be your friend. I promise I will not tell our galactic overlords in this universe about you keeping one. Wink. Because I may keep one myself. Wink. But no, actually, with my moral code, I probably wouldn't be able to keep one for myself. Just to get that out there. And yes, I say that's like a bad thing, because what kind of changes that could make. But the big problem is what kind of problems it could bring. Especially if any of the Mogwai found out that I had took that. Because they don't believe in just killing one, they believe in killing all. And I just don't think I'd be able to sleep about it. I wouldn't be able to sleep after that. But I'm curious to see what you guys and gals would do with such wealth. It'd be incredible, really. Anyway, so let's move on from there. And You got to ask the question, is it worth your time, efforts, and energies? If you've never read any of them before, it's a horrible place to pick up. This is not a standalone story. Now, the one before, I think you could probably read without knowing anything else. So that would have been Green Road, which I think was 15 in the series. It might be just enough to get you hooked to listen to them from the beginning up to this point. But I digress. I mean, sometimes I'll listen to a book a second time or a third time just to make sure I got details right, so that whenever I go to kind of talk about it a little bit with you guys and gals, that I'll have my stuff together. But this is one that I've listened to a few times because I wanted to, just to see if there was anything I could catch that was different or new. And there actually has. There's a couple of details I've caught this time around that I didn't catch the first time for sure. And it's interesting how those kind of all play in together. Now, if you've made it this far, you are my hero. Did I like this book? Yes, I like this book just as much as I like you for watching this till the end. My God. And I also kind of want to try something. If you did watch it all the way to the end, to this point, why don't you put the word Lumix in the comments? I'm curious to see if people are getting to this point or not. So, I love you. I love your faces. I love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being here. I don't know which one of these videos right over here that are coming in, threatening to suffocate me with their grandeur, that you will choose. But if you pick that one up there, I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye. Bye.